Hey guys, Strike King Pro Keith Combs here, and we're going to talk about jigs, and more specifically, Strike King structure jig versus their football jig, and when do you throw one over the other. You know, for me, when I'm offshore fishing, I always have a jig tied on one of those two, but there's situations where one is going to excel over the other one, and I want to go over those different scenarios today. The structure jig was one that came out a few years ago, and I was really excited to get that because a lot of the places I fish, East Texas, we're fishing brush piles, Toledo Bend, we're fishing heavy timber, and you know, a football jig in wood, it just really doesn't come through that very good. Football jig really tends to excel in areas where you have a smoother bottom. So let's talk about the characteristics of these two baits, and we'll start with the structure jig. So you can see this is one of my favorite ones, one of my favorite colors to throw with football jigs. It's a 3/4 ounce, and the head design on this is very unique. It's a big wide head, so it's not going to slip down in crevices. That's good. But the main thing about it, it's going to slip through wood very easily with the way that the eye's positioned, and that cobra head design, that's what they call that. It comes through the wood very good. So in a wood type situation, I'm gonna go with the structure jig. It still has a lot of the same principles of the football jig. When you pull it, it's gonna kick that rage crawl up like that and put that crawfish in a defensive mode. But the main benefit there is it's gonna come through the cover really good. And also a lot of times in a heavy cover situation, you're gonna want a big hook, and it's got a great big hook in it. And that strength right there is just what you need. So round cover, heavy cover, the structure jig gets a nod. Now in an open water situation, say you're fishing on the Tennessee River, gravel bar, maybe you have a few isolated stumps, something like that, that's when I love to throw that football jig. With that round head, what it's gonna do is when you're pulling it across the bottom, it's gonna almost add an action to the bait. So it's gonna almost crawl. The structure jig will do that some, but not to the level that the football jig will. It's gonna kick, when you pull it, it's gonna kick that crawfish pincher up in a defensive mode. That's what draws a lot of reaction strikes, and you're just gonna have that action. You'll notice when you throw a football jig out there and you're pulling it across the bottom, you can feel every little thing. That's because it's grabbing it. So that added feel is really nice too. But those are my favorite baits as far as jigs go to throw on offshore structure. Strike King football jig and their structure jig, but they're two different baits, and they should be used differently. I promise you, that'll make your days a lot more enjoyable on the water. You'll catch more fish, you'll be hung up a lot less. You need both jigs in your arsenal.